One difficulty I had was with the football resource file. As it's not an international sport, there was limited resources that were evidence school based, and lots of the activities were directed for athletes in the AFL. So when relating them to a student-based learning, it was hard to refine these to suit all the learners. In addition, football and netball was created as hard copy resource files in first year. So when I had to convert them onto my Weebly, it was difficult transferring all the documents as they did not always match onto an online source. Personally, I'm less confident in some sports such as tennis and athletics, so when starting off in these resource files for these sports, it was harder to have that base knowledge to find resources, skills, activities, tactics and strategies to suit learners of a younger age group. When researching for all resource files, it was sometimes difficult to find modern resource files as many were dated and had limited technological modern resources for students for their skill development in class. It was also difficult to find all reliable resources that complied with one another, such as rules for sports would have different rules in different documents, such as in America they might have different rules for basketball compared to Australia, or in states may vary between AFL. So to find a set of rules that were all complying with one another was sometimes difficult. Some sports like soccer and athletics have a lot of key teaching points and skills to cover, so in creating my resource file it was very hard to make sure that these were all covered to a standard I was happy with and that had all regression progressions that were suitable for learners. This was also very difficult for sports that I was unfamiliar with because I wasn't sure if all these tactics and KTPs were suitable for more of the younger years, or if I just had to have a base skills instead of all the complex ones as well. As many of the resources were for athletes, not school-based learners, it was difficult to ensure that all the activities would suit different year levels and learners that may not have the capacity and the ability of an athlete, to make sure that these skills could be refined and learned by all students in years 7 to 10. Another difficulty I found was it wasn't always easy to find a regression and progression for activities. I sometimes had to rely on my own knowledge to ensure that these activities had both regressions and progressions for students that may not be able to complete the skill correctly, or overachievers in this area that had already been able to do this skill previously and needed more of a progression to challenge them during class. I definitely found this harder in sports that I was less confident with, as it was hard to rely on my own knowledge and I just had to go off the activity. But in skills like basketball and soccer, where I played most of my life, it was a lot easier to know how to regress a skill or progress a skill just based on what I had done in my life. Overall, there was not a great amount of evidence resources that showed they were prevalent in current schools. They were either dated or they were made for athletes. So this is where I found it was most difficult to ensure they were suitable for students and learners of all age groups.